Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of Montana Made. Today is a great day in Montana. Uh, you just say that when you live here. It's beautiful. But really, what's honestly awesome is that I get to show you guys another great project that I hope you all can do. And what we're working on today is how to build your own concrete countertop. Super easy to do. Everybody's doing it these days, it seems like, or has interest in it. Very cheap to do. Outcome is amazing. And like I said, any of you guys can do this. So what we're going to do is take you, from step one, material, all the way to finished product. And this will be a multi-video, in-depth look at how to do everything. So as these videos progress, feel free to throw questions at me and I can answer them in all of my videos. Also feel free to check out all my other do-it-yourself videos along the way. So let's get to it. Okay guys, here we are with the material that you will need to build your mold for your concrete countertops. And what we're looking at, I'll just describe everything to you just so you know in depth, so when you go to the store you know what to buy. The biggest portion of this mold, the heaviest part that you're going to need, is this melamine, and they sell it in 4x8 sheets at Lowe's or Home Depot, and it is very heavy. The white finish that they have on it is really sharp, so I recommend handling it with gloves as well. Cut it with a fine tooth saw. Reason I say that, so if you look at this one was just rough cut with this saw that's not fine toothed, and it chips really easily. But this is all going to be covered when I snap my mold together, so I'm not too concerned about this. If you guys don't have a saw to cut this out, again, Lowe's and Home Depot have that in-house and they'll make these cuts for you, which I highly recommend just because these sheets are so heavy to handle. The next thing you're going to need is obviously some sort of square to make straight edge cuts if you're going to cut this yourself. And they're just handy to get your proper measurements and draw 90s and take a lot of the guesswork out of trying to draw a straight line, which I'm not very good at freehand. Again, if you're going to cut this out yourself, you need some kind of circular saw, table saw, I don't care, but just some kind of power saw to make it happen. You're going to need some sort of screws. These are 1.5 inch drywall screws, and so I'm using those. I just prefer them on this kind of a project. They just seem to hold all the material together better in my mold making process. Obviously some kind of pencil to draw your lines. Big part that you're going to need is some kind of drill with a drill bit, so you can pre-drill all your holes in the melamine. And finally, just some regular old silicone caulking, and that's all for your joints, so it seals your joints. And when I snap this together, I'm going to cut out a mold really fast and put it together just so I can talk about that mold and why we build it the way that we do. So let's move over to that portion of this project. Okay, so we have all of our pieces cut out. I have screwed them together. So the reason that we pre-drill all of the holes in this melamine is because it's super slippery. It's nearly impossible just to run a screw through it, and it also keeps it from cracking as you put it together, obviously. But basically all you're doing is measuring, cut your mold out to the thickness of how you want your slab and the shape. You can get as creative as you want. For this, we're just doing a rectangle because on the future videos I'm going to show you guys different grits of the diamond cutting pads and how they look with a finish on them. But until then, we'll just keep talking about this mold. So when I cut up my mold pieces, I always label, the base is the main base, and it's going to have, all the puzzle pieces fitting together. So A's match A's, B's match B's. It's, pretty straightforward. At this point, with your base cut out, you really want to make sure it's really clean. So we'll take a vacuum this whole area out, because we don't want the concrete, sucking up any of this crap that would look bad in the finish. You can stick, these are just an example, you can stick any kind of metal. If you got a cool design that you can cut out of metal, you can stick it face down, because when you flip this over and take it off, that'll be shown straight up. I'll show you guys an example of that here at the end of this video too, what those look like. So, you know, if you do that, you put something like just a basic silicone on the face of these. I got some sitting here just so I can show you, and just stick them to it and let that cure. So then when you pour your concrete into your mold, these will stay in place. You know, if you try and draw something perfectly center in here, if this was your showpiece, that's not going to move way over here when you pour your concrete. Putting silicone on the face of it is easy to remove too when you get this mold taken apart. So I've had a lot of questions. Yeah, but what if you pour your concrete in place? So I've mocked up, you know, that scenario. Generally, if you're pouring a concrete countertop that's huge, you'll frame it up in place, and your base for that will generally be, you know, some kind of plywood or MDF. And same thing where on your edge, you frame it underneath of the countertop. So if you're pouring your concrete in here, by the time it finishes, it'll cover up this base so that, you know, when your reveal is there, you won't have this unfinished surface. It actually is mocked up so that it covers, has a complete coverage of that countertop. And those are easy to set up as well, and you can cut them in any shape as well. Again, I'll show you another example of that here at the end of this video so you guys can see how both look. And the way you form these up is same thing as your, you know, your basic flip over mold. These are just screwed into place. Same thing, you use melamine for the face, because you'll just peel these off at the end, and this is screwed from the top, but you'll run your screws up from the bottom into your wood so that concrete doesn't actually adhere to this screw. So you can just undo your screw at the end and all this melamine pops off. So we will move on to cleaning and how to silicone these. The last thing we have to do for this mold before we can pour concrete is fill each and every single one of these cracks with your silicone caulking material that you bought. The reason we use silicone caulking is because it's a release agent for concrete. I mean, concrete's never going to stick to it, and all you do is just smooth out any and every corner that could leak concrete. So this just keeps the wet concrete from flowing out of the mold. And again, it releases the concrete when the concrete's cured, which is important because you need to obviously get this stuff back off so you can work on your concrete. What I'll do now is I'll take you guys to a couple finished projects that show you why you choose the cast in place method over the pour in place, you know, the flip over mold, and how the two have completely different outcomes. One I've done a metal inlay with. You can also do wood inlays as well. Just look it up on YouTube as well. Wood inlay concrete countertop, and there's 1,000 things that come up. So let's move on to those, and I'll see you guys there. Okay, so to close out this mold making video, like I told you, we would be back here at the tail end of this video to show you a cast in place, which is this countertop. Now this was cast in place. I set this up the way that it was because the slab is so huge, and to try and haul these in, you know, from outside out of just a pop-out mold isn't very realistic. So what we did is, you know, under your cabinetry, make sure with anything, you know, concrete-wise, that where you're laying this concrete can support the weight. You know, this slab is about 2 inches thick, as you can see. So as I showed you in the mock-up, the cast in place, so if we go under here, you can see the wood, and it's just that plywood base, and where we, you know, created that lip with the melamine to hide the face of that plywood. So, yeah, just to show you guys, turned out pretty nice, really easy to do. We went with a lot of aggregate exposed, and probably about 10 coats of clear, and we'll talk about that in my future videos. So we'll go through how to get it to this look the proper way to treat it for kitchen applications, because obviously, you know, you're going to be making food on it. Knockout for any kind of sinks. Also very easy, so we'll go over that too. So we will now move over to what just a standard pop-out mold will look like with an insert and talk about that. Okay, now here is a finished product that I did a few months back using the pop-out mold method from, you know, so earlier in this video where I've got my mold cut out. This is what you'll end up with. Similar, obviously the one I've got is a lot smaller. This is a tabletop for a recreational room slash beer drinking table, because people do that everywhere, and it is it seems to be necessary. So a few of the key features about this table. So the inlay that I talked about, using the washers as an example, I designed this on AutoCAD, and then I took it down to one of the local steel places and had them laser etch it out with their equipment. It's just flat stock steel, and then I highly, you know, polished it down with 800 grit sandpaper, and I'll show you guys a little bit later how to do that if you want that. So it brings it to a mirror finish. Really cool, great, you know, great talking point for any company, and it just it looks nice. It's a super thick slab. I did 2-inch pour, and when I'm doing my pours in these future videos, we'll talk about, you know, thickness of your slab, rebar that you put into it to stiffen it up to make it strong for, you know, any application, and basically how to design that. So as you look at this, you can see that there's a lot of these holes called rock pockets. And the reason that this slab looks the way that it does is because I did not vibrate it. So what those are is just anywhere where there are air bubbles trapped in this slab. I wanted this look at the end just for this table. So what we'll do is I'll show you how to, you know, cheaply vibrate these slabs to get these air bubbles out of this. So, you know, at the end, this will be nice and smooth if you want that look. But if you want this look, just don't vibrate the slab, and you'll end up with it. It still looks really nice, but we're not going to be putting food on this. You can, but, you know, putting food and dicing up food, it's going to get trapped in these holes regardless of, you know, I've got the food grade sealant on here, but it's still, obviously you don't want food in there because it'd grow mold and would be unhealthy pretty quick. Well, there you have it. That is the introductory video on how to make a mold for any cast in place or, you know, pop out mold for concrete countertop. Behind me, I will have the sequential upcoming videos. So if you guys have things you need answered on how to pour concrete, how to make these tabletops, you know, it's a pretty simple process, but there are specific steps you need to follow throughout. Please feel free to ask, and I will continue to post those. Like and subscribe so you make sure you get all my videos. There's going to be a bunch of them upcoming that I think you guys will enjoy, and I will catch you later.